Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome to an OpenTTD tutorial about Heightmaps. If you want to know more about me, it's masterhellish.net, and if you want to know more about OpenTTD, there is a link to the tutorial playlist in the video description. Now, what are Heightmaps? Well, let's jump into the game and I will show you. So here we are in the main menu, and you can see there's this Play Heightmap button, but we're actually going to leave that for later. First, we're going to jump into the scenario editor. Now, what the Heightmap is a image representation of the land within your game. So let's load up a scenario. We'll use the recent charity live stream map. Now, if you want to know more about this map, I did make a separate video about it on my channel where you can go and find out about that. And it's actually in there I mentioned Heightmaps. So you can see here we've got a OpenTTD world, we've got water, we've got land, and we've got buildings and cities and so forth. Now, the Heightmap is all about just the land. So if I go save as Heightmap, so we're going to save what we've currently got as a Heightmap, then we're going to come in here and let's see, Heightmap, yep, and we're going to do a test save there, and what we can do is now open that external to the game. So how do you open it? Well, the file itself will be in the Heightmap folder, which is in your scenario folder, which is in your OpenTTD folder. Now, where your OpenTTD folder is depends on how you've installed it and configured it and what system you're running on. But if you're running on a modern version of Windows, your OpenTTD folder is in your My Documents folder by default. So it would be My Documents, OpenTTD, Scenario, and then Heightmap. And how do you open it? Well, you open it with any image program. So, for example, Paint.net, GIMP, or any of your favorite image manipulation programs. Now here, for this demo, I'm going to be using GIMP. It's my personal favorite. It's got lots of features and it's legitimately free. So I'm going to open up what we just saved. Here we go. And there we are. So what you can see is that we have a black and white or grayscale representation of the land from that game. And it is in here that we can make changes or even create brand new Heightmaps, which I'll show you later, to be able to then modify and have it in an OpenTTD. So let's say, just for example, we want one of these shapes gone. Well, we can modify that here and then import it back into the game. So I'm going to just turn off feathering edges of my select tool, and I'm just going to select one of these shapes. So I'm using the tool to go around the area that I want to get rid of. Now you can see that I'm going around the black bit, and the black bit in these files is the lowest point of the map and the white bit is the highest point of the map. So in this game the black bit is the water. So if I delete that hat there and then export that back out again, so we're going to put that in as our test which has been modified, and we will replace that modified file. There we go. We'll jump back into the game and have a look at what that looks like. So now if we go into the save options and go to load Heightmap, we can get that test file and load it, and it gives us some options for the land generation, because it's just a kind of a definition of what the land should be generated like, in what shape. You can still have it in the different climates, and you can still modify different things like the date and so forth. So let's generate this now. And you can see that we have our Christmas tree and bell and our snowflake, but the hat has gone. And you can also see all the cities and stuff have gone as well. There's no trees, there's no cities, and that's because these maps are just the height. So when you're planning on using a Heightmap to create a scenario, it's the first part of the process. Okay, you need to get all of the land correct and then put your cities and industries and stuff on it afterwards. Okay. So that is a demo of what a Heightmap is. You can export from OpenTTD, make changes and import, or you can create them and just import them outright. So let's have a look at the process of making one, and then we'll bring it into OpenTTD, and then I'll show you how to play it. Now we're back in GIMP because we're going to create an image like in our previous example. Now, why are we doing outside of OpenTTD? Why aren't we just using the land tools? Well, you can actually do some really clever stuff in a graphic image, program like this that would take you forever to do in the game. So for example, I could actually make a map that had text in it, and I could do that very easily. So we could say sub to Hellish. Okay, And we could get that, and we could change the color of it. Remember, we're supposed to be using grayscale. So I will say maximum land height for sub to Hellish. Let's make it really big across the screen. There we go. And then let's also just draw something as well. Bear in mind that I'm not demonstrating how to use the graphical program. I'm demonstrating how that then interprets into OpenTTD. So we can put some stars in, I think, as well. So then we can have two of that grey, which apparently is not as white. I'm not sure. And then we'll do some that are darker, like this. And then one that's very dark. Yeah, a couple that are very dark down here. There we go. So you can see how using the tools in the image program, we've put text and shapes in, and what we can do is now save that and then import it into OpenTTD. So when you save your image, save it as a PNG. I know that works. It might work with other formats, but I know PNG works. And you can see I've got it here, sub to Hellish. We can load that and choose our different settings and generate our world. And you can see now that we've got some fantastic shaped land with the text sub to Hellish in this kind of isometric format. And here's our stars. We've got some here that are, well, if we look at the land there, we've got a few, it's like 4 out of the ocean. That one's much higher out the ocean because it was a lighter colour. And then some down here that are only just out of the ocean altogether. And that is how we can make an interesting map. There you go. And you can see how it translates to being in the game. You can see it kind of goes around a partial turn because we design it square, but then it's in isometric. So it kind of goes through this conversion process. Now that conversion process, you can decide which way it goes. So if we load this again, but load it so it goes clockwise rather than counterclockwise, you can see the sub to Hellish is this way. So you can choose whether it's that way or that way, but it only goes through one rotation. Right, so that is a bit of a silly example. Let's do a better example. So we're going to modify this layer here and put some things on it and make it look better. We're going to also talk about some more advanced techniques, but you are really only limited by your skills within this particular program that you're using. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by just drawing some land. So I'm going to have a nice brush, make it quite big, and I'm going to decide that I want a big piece of land mass, something like this. And then I want a smaller land mass over here, and then an even smaller land mass there. Now, when you're designing these, you need to think about how it would work in like real life, in a real game. Are you blocking off waterways so that ships won't be able to get through, or are you leaving too much of this and that? So you need to think about these things as you're working on them, and you need to use the tools available to make something that would actually be playable in the game. You could do some really weird things too. Okay, so I've got some blobs here, but it's not very interesting just having 3 blobs. Let's add some noise to them to try and get some hills going up and down. So we're going to go to filters, and we're going to add a noise filter. So we're going to go, let's see, render. Where's render gone? There it is. And we're going to add some noise. Now you can add different sorts of noise like plasmas and solid noise and all that sort of thing. We're going to go with solid noise on this case. And you can see here, it's gone absolutely crazy and added some noise all over it. But you can use different blending options. So this is a replace option. Multiply, there we are. Multiply could be a good option. So then you can see that you can do different height amounts. Like you can say you can have lots of low variation, or you can have high variation just by changing the size of the noise that's in the game. Which that's quite good actually. We'll have that. Now a good tip when you're doing these things is to use the the brightness and contrast. Okay, so if you increase the contrast, you're going to have steeper hills. And if you decrease the contrast, you're going to have shallower hills. Also, you can brighten the whole image, which means everything goes up in height, and you can darken the image, which means everything goes down in height too. Now I'm going to just darken it a little bit, and I'm going to set a tiny bit more contrast. There we go. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so the edges of my land are a bit more slopey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the magic wand to select all that dark area around there. Okay, so let's feather the edges by 40 and reselect, and then do a grow and delete. So let's just grow that by 40 and then delete. And you can see that the edges there are getting softer. So hopefully it shouldn't be too bad. Let's see what this kind of splodgy, noisy sort of thing looks like in the game. And here we are now in our scenario, and you can see it's generated my splodges, it's popped the rivers in, and you can see that we have a variation with hills and lakes. They've got a couple of little lakes in there with some hill peaks, and around the edge we've got this little bit of coastline that is a little bit softer. And in some areas it's a big bit of coastline, and in other areas it's a little bit softer as well. But there are various different tools and techniques that you can use to create these images and make changes, but you can see how you can make some really interesting land within the game just with your images. Now, you can play around with some of the extra settings here when importing your map. For example, I've just changed the highest peak down to, well, let's change it down to 8 in this particular load of exactly the same thing. And watch the background here about how much the hills change. Look at that. That's exactly the same height map, but all I've done is change the maximum height of the world, and it's made it a much softer one. Actually, I quite like this. This would be quite a good one to actually generate up as a game. Maybe we'll do it for one of our cool subscriber games. But there we go. You can see how you can change some of the settings. And what we'll do is we'll load it one more time, the 3 splodges, and we'll also load it as, let's load it as a desert map. Oh, okay, let's go for that. And we go. So we've got the same map loaded as a desert map. Nice. So we have our scenario here and we want to play it. Well, we can do that one of 2 ways. We can either add stuff to it, for example, add many random towns and industries, save it as a scenario, and then you can then load it from the main screen and play it just like you can with any other scenario, so play scenario. Or you can go to that play height map option I talked about at the beginning of the video, where you can choose your height map, load it up with all the stuff that you've got selected in here, and then generate and play it, and it will use your standard game settings to place in the rest of the stuff as well. It's quite a good map. I think I'm going to have a game of OpenTTD now. So there we go. If you don't have your very own wizard Brandon like I do, who made my recent height maps, you can make your own. Just remember to think about how it's going to translate into gameplay once people are actually playing on your map. Remember, you can export from OpenTTD, make your changes in your favorite image program, and then import them back again. Remember to save your files as PNGs, and also you think about incorporating stuff from other places. You can take images from the internet, or you could even use large language models to generate them for you. I've had somewhat mixed success with that in the past. Just make sure that they are in grayscale, so kind of the white to black scale of things with no colour, and get them saved and have a go. If you've got any questions about this, pop them down in the comments and I will try and answer them all. But that is all from me for now. Remember, all stuff about OpenTTD and other games on my channel, so get subscribed if you're not already, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, and for now, goodbye.